are with Jon Maddux, and so we were just talking about your origin story is very much as a creative, right? As a songwriter, you wrote for the Plain White T's and a bunch of other musicians. So let's talk about, and you make tequila now, right? And in between the songwriting and the tequila, there's a whole other story, right? So your entrepreneurial journey is in kind of these phases, right? So let's talk about like the early days, the origin, the songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from, I didn't ever like school, right? So I just kind of did really bad in school when I was growing up in high school. And my head was always in the clouds, thinking of other things, writing lyrics. And I started a band when I was in high school. Grew my hair long. My dad was a preacher, so it was kind of like a rebellion thing. But it ended up being it went into like heavy metal Christian. So it was like I was still sort of, toeing the line with my parents and my dad, but I wanted to do something, I just always kind of wanted to do my own thing. I've never really been a big rule follower. So I started writing songs, playing live, and, playing with, getting a band together. So I was like the leader of the band and had a few different bands growing up. And then it was later in my life, I say later, I started a band in high school. And then when I was in my late 20s, early 30s is when Warner Brothers signed me to a songwriting deal. And so I started writing music. They'd fly me out to Nashville. I was more pop rock music, but then there was starting to be some crossover with pop rock and country. And so I started writing with people in Nashville, which amazing writers in Nashville. And I had a deal for 2 years with Warner Brothers, and it was kind of a weird time when I had the deal. It was right during when Napster came out. And so a lot of the artists that I was working with, they all got dropped from their labels. So I did get to write. I did write. It was in a room with the Plain White T's with the singer, Tom, and we wrote a song together, and it never came out, but I got to work with Smash Mouth a little bit. A bunch of other artists, and it was a fun.
Do you still write songs? I mean, people who do that, it sort of just like seeps out of your pores, right? Like it's just in you and it needs to come out, right? So do you still?
I kind of look at things in my life as chapters. So I had this chapter of my life when I was into heavy metal, right? And I was in a band, and then had to have a chapter in my life when I was I went to Bible college and was thinking maybe should I go follow my dad's footsteps and be a preacher, which I'm so glad I didn't do that. Great for him, but different for me, right? And then I look at music now. My daughter's a songwriter. Her name's Jon Maddux, and she's so much more talented than I. She's 19.
She's got a better name than you do.
She does. Jon Maddux, right? It's
that's name. quite a musician's name.
Yeah. So I helped her write a lot when she was younger, and then now she's kind of surpassed and working with major producers in Nashville. And so I look at it as chapters. To answer your question, I don't write a lot. It's kind of funny. I actually just was tinkering around with some lyrics, and I sent them to my daughter, and never even heard back from her about it, because I'm she's kind of already gotten to that point. And, I'm old, 52, so I'm I'm in that age group where I'm she's 19.
Do you think she 19. Read the lyrics and she's like, wow, these are so bad, and just put them away?
It's possible. Or maybe she's like a typical teenager and just didn't even see the message at all. Exactly. That's what I'm hoping, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about chapters, and you had this, extremely creative burst early in your career. And then you identified, this is the weirdest pivot we've had on the podcast yet, right? Because during the financial crisis of, was it 2007, 2008-ish?
Yeah, exactly.
You identified this untapped market, right? So let's talk about, because what the name of the company, I can't remember. You Walk Away, right? So let's talk about that for people who don't, are too young to remember what happened in 2007, 2008 with the subprime and all these toxic mortgages, right? So it was a disaster.
It was such a disaster.
Yeah.
People were losing their homes. They didn't know what to do.
Upside down.
Yeah, very upside down. So they owed way more than, what the house was worth. So it's you're in a scary position. You're I just thought I was doing the right thing, the American dream, getting into a home. And then now it's gosh, I'm stuck in this thing. I could never even sell it. What do I do? Right. So that's kind of where I kind of came up with the idea that, maybe you can walk away from a house, and let's look at the contract. What does the contract say? It's kind of in a way, almost we have no problem canceling our Verizon contract. We don't like Verizon anymore. Switch to AT&T. It's actually just a legal contract and you pay a penalty. The banks lent this money, thought it was a smart move from their part. They're making billions, right?
And the balloon, right? Those big balloon mortgages.
Right. So there were some toxic mortgages where you'd be locked into a loan for, say, you have a prepayment penalty. You can't pay it off for 5 years.
Yeah.
But then it starts adjusting after 2 years. So, it's maybe at a 5% rate, and then it goes up to 6 and 7 and 8.
Right. It just goes up and up and up.
And you can't even really refi or pay a huge penalty. So the loans weren't great back then. I mean, anyone could
they
fog
were
a
dogs.
mirror. You could fog a mirror and get a loan. So they gave a lot of loans to people that just didn't know better and they just didn't read the fine print. But then at the end of the day, so there's a flip side to that, and it's the contract. And contract does say what's going to happen. What's the penalty if you foreclose or if you walk away from it? And that was typically a better outcome for the borrower than to be stuck in that loan and stuck in that house where couldn't really do anything.
How did you come across this opportunity, this idea, this very specific niche?
So interesting story. I was out of a job because I had a mortgage company before, and about 50 employees. We had to lay them all off. So I'm sitting in my recording studio. I still at this point have my contract with Warner. Sitting there in the studio, saying like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I have no money, no income. Everything's falling apart. And have you ever seen the show Mad Men?
Yes.
So there's a scene in that show where Donald Draper looks at Peggy and he's talking to her and he says, think of an idea, if you're stuck on an idea, just think hard about it, really hard, and then let your mind go blank. And I just watched that episode like 2 days before. And so I did that. I'm sitting in my studio and I'm just thinking really hard about my problem, not having a job, not having, and I was the owner of the mortgage company, so I had to let that all go. It was devastating. So I just sat there and I was thinking, and I let my mind go blank. And then just like an antenna, all of a sudden in my head said the words "walk away from your house" came in my head. And I was like, wait, what? And then I Googled it, and all it was like Katy Perry or Kelly Clarkson "Walk Away" song,
Right.
And there was nothing. And then I saw things that said, save your home, stop foreclosure. Nothing anywhere in Google said walk away from your home. So I was like, oh shoot, I'm onto something. And I'd been in the mortgage business at that point for about 11 years. And I thought, I had no idea what would happen if you foreclose. And I'm like, if I don't know, someone has 11 years experience, how much less would someone who, just bought a house and never really understood it, how much more would they need help? So I started researching it. And my partner at the time, Chad Rule, he was an attorney and he started looking into it, started doing some research on what would happen if you foreclosed. And typically we were shocked to find out that people could live in their home for almost a year before the foreclosure process would happen.
Yeah.
And so, we started the service called You Walk Away, and it just blew up all over news.
And what did it what did it do?
That's a great question. So it was mainly, we were advocates. So it was kind of like a prepaid legal service.
Right. Like an arbitrage.
It'd be where we set them up with an attorney in our roster.
So like a turnkey solution.
Like a full solution. Yeah. And we would talk with them about the whole situation. We talked to them about their tax ramifications, talk to them about what would happen if they foreclose. And so they were can make an educated decision on, is this right for me? Or should I just keep paying and stick it out? And for a lot of people, they were so underwater, they just were like, thank God I can.
Yeah, just a huge relief.
And it wasn't expensive.
What about the, walking into that kind of environment that is very highly charged and emotional, right? How did you deal? Was it mostly people going, whew?
I think they got relief after they talked to us because they were like, oh God, is the sheriff going to show up and
evict
me tomorrow? Or am I going to be embarrassed? Is everyone in my neighborhood going to know? They're going to see me in handcuffs? What?
It was bad.
Right. So for us to give them that peace of mind, I think it was, for a lot of people, they were so thankful. So happy. The banks didn't love us, so
too bad.
They got bailed out, so no one's bailing out the Main Street, right?
So what after the mortgage crisis sort of, solved.
Yeah.
I mean, it got a little bit cleaner
Mm-hmm.
after a while because for those people who were not alive or do not remember it, people were losing everything.
Oh yeah.
Right. It was a very dark time in the real estate market in this country.
It wiped you out.
It wiped you out,
Mm-hmm.
destroy you emotionally, spiritually, all of that stuff.
Right.
Where did you go after it sort of righted itself?
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
I sort of took a little time off, went back to songwriting. It's like another chapter of my life. And we moved to Nashville, lived in Nashville.
Wow, you went the whole hog.
Yeah. So I left San Diego, went to Nashville for 3 years with my whole family. And we just said, let's figure this out. And so we had all these people that had foreclosed, right? We had data. We had about 10,000 people that had gone through it with us. And a lot of them wanted to eventually buy again and kind of reset. And so one day I was like, well, let's maybe look into how we do that. And I was looking through, Google, and I found a domain available called afterforeclosure.com. So I bought that.
So actually the continuation of the first story.
Right. So, we got all these leads. It went on CNBC. CNBC talked about it. A bunch of news outlets talked about it. And so all these leads start pouring in, people who had foreclosures that wanted to buy again. So we called them boomerang buyers, right? So that became a big trend. And then for a while, that was pretty much, then we started a new mortgage company, me and my partner. And that company pretty much took off because we had all these leads and all these people that wanted to. We found some products that would allow them to buy again.
Yeah. That data part is so critical.
Yeah.
Right. You can do so much, with a network of potential clients,
right.
That was a really, really smart move. So as you're going through, we're going to get to tequila, but all these different iterations and pivots that you've made, and in the financial markets, there's definitely a thread of similarity, right? They're related. But how did you reconcile or use your creative side, right, throughout all of these things? Because I think people look at the financial industry and people very left-brained, very analytical, very linear, right? But that's not true, right? Creativity is not just painting on a canvas, right? It's problem solving.
Problem solving, exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about how that, you don't just become, not creative, right? You can't undo that part of yourself.
Exactly.
So how do you integrate that into your work now and even through the mortgage crisis? How did you sort of harness that?
Yeah. So I think, when I did mortgages, I always liked the creative side of it because what's
the creative side of mortgages?
It's a good question. It is problem solving, right? Mm-hmm. And so writing lyrics is problem solving kind of because you have to fit this idea in your head into something that rhymes. It's something that's repetitive.
Right.
It's memorable.
Yeah,
it's a puzzle. So I think when I say the creative side of mortgages, I always did loans for people that really couldn't get loans at a bank. It's super hard to compete with Chase or with B of A, right? It's they got the best rates, they've got the best, and they have a box. And if you don't fit into that box, sorry, you don't get a loan.
Yeah.
So my focus in mortgage was always on the people that were outside the box. So that was where my creativity came in. I'd look at, more of a holistic approach to the loan, more credit risk versus just boxes. And so found loan products as a mortgage broker that would allow for little nuances. And I really got good at the nuances and how to figure out, if this person could qualify. And that's really what I made my niche.
Isn't it, I'm not going to try to put words in your mouth here, but isn't it all part of storytelling?
Yeah.
Right? You have to pull all of these different scenarios and get a full story arc, right? It's a really beautiful thing. And that's why your story, when I was reading about you last night, I'm like, who is this guy? This is insane because you go and you're still in the lending industry and you still have a company and you're still very active. But then there's this tequila. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. So let's pivot toward the tequila because it's not just tequila, it's a blend, but it's also subscription, right?
Well, we started out as a subscription.
Okay.
And then it was the road that led us to this. really the subscription thing was an idea of my business partner's wife. She has a bubbles business. Her name is Shiloh Caffrey. She has a bubbles business.
Bubbles being champagne.
Champagne, yes. So she imported champagne and other bubbles that were, from Spain or from France.
Prosecco and all the stuff.
I don't know all about it, but I know that she was the one that first came up with We Drink Bubbles, which was that bubbles subscription. And that was during the COVID, it really took off because people were at home.
Right.
They're like, let me have more champagne.
Yeah,
so
drinking a lot. Yeah.
And so that she did really well. And then one day we're sitting in my house and the wives are drinking champagne, and me and my partner, Preston Caffrey, we're drinking tequila. And we look at each other and the girls are like, we drink bubbles. And then we looked at each other like, we drink tequila. And then it kind of like,
whoa.
We looked at each other and go, we probably should do this. So let's copy your wife, but then do our own little spin on it. And then, really it was built around the fact that we were just tired of the tequilas that were out there. It's the big brands, the big name, the mass production. Yeah. And it was good. Like we were getting into it, getting nerdy about it. And we realized that maybe there are some growers, some farmers, distillers in Jalisco that, are not known by,
like the smaller
batch. Yeah. And stuff that could be way better than, say, Patron, not hating on anybody, or Casamigos, right? It's like something that's actually made really well, smaller batched. And so we started going down. We started going down to Jalisco, doing these little
how fun
research and development trips, which were great. And sure enough, we found some growers that we just thought, wow, this tequila is incredible. Some of their marketing isn't the best because they're not in the United States yet. So we kind of put together a team. We have an amazing partner named Patrick Tracy. He does music videos for the stars. I mean, he's mostly country, but he's done everything from Justin Bieber to Katy Perry, but he just did, he won the VMA Music Video of the Year award.
For what?
For Lainey Wilson.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he's an incredible creative. And so he came on board early with us and started making, helping us with the branding for these other small tequila companies, and then as well as making these incredible videos of just the experience, the storytelling of what we were doing. And so our club started taking off because people started going, wow, yeah, there is something else that's really good that I'm just not seeing on the shelf at Bevmo or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you were telling me it's a blend and it's a little bit different and it has a shot glass on top. So it's like one-stop shopping.
And this actually twists off, the cork does, and you can keep it. It's heavy. It feels substantial.
Yeah, right? No, it's super cool. It's like a 1950s,
yeah,
pretty cool.
We're in like the late 60s, early 70s kind of vibe for everything that we're doing.
It comes through.
Totally, right? Yeah. And it's a different looking bottle. And when we first started going down the path of maybe we should make our own tequila brand, Bebemos means we drink. So it's really just a translation of the club. But we thought it was a cool name. It wasn't taken. Bebemos was kind of rolls off your tongue. And it, and so really, I think the thought behind it was, how can we do something different? We don't want to be just another tequila on the shelf, right? There's a lot of those, and we don't want to be a celebrity-backed tequila because that's sort of played out a little bit. And let's just go work on the product and let's find the best product we can, so that the most important part about launching a tequila is the reorders. So like if people don't love it, like some celebrity brands, people are like, oh, this is amazing. And then they try it and they're like, that's good, but it's not any better than this one, right? So we took our time to about 5 years total of just research and development. And then in our club, we have this, over 300 people who really love tequila. And so we could sort of crowdsource what's your palate? And it really was kind of matching our palate. Everyone was reordering this one brand or this couple brands from the same distillery.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so we said, let's partner with these guys. They're a great family. We became really close with them. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do something different. And so the thought of doing a blend is different because everyone asks, like, is it a Reposado? Is it a Blanco?
We were just talking about that because it's not.
It's not, no. And the fact that we just did one was really kind of the idea behind it, or the culture behind it, is that if you like a Blanco, you're going to like this. If you like a reposado, you're going to like this. If you like to mix, if you like to sip.
Right.
We wanted to make kind of, in our minds, the perfect tequila where everyone would like it. And so we worked really hard on not only just finding a distillery that, grew their agaves for 7 years, 8 years, which is really like, if you think about fruit, right? If it's ripe, then it has natural sugars. If it's young, it's 3 or 4 year agave, it's going to, it's not going to have the sweetness, the natural sweetness. So then they have to add stuff, right? They have to add sugars or cane syrup and agave syrup to it. And that's where you start getting into the tequilas that are more mass produced, that have additives and things like that to cover up, the poor, like it's not made as, so we really worked on the quality. I think that was the number one thing, was quality. And then the design team with Patrick was, and Preston, was really about, how do we make a bottle that wows people, turns heads, and makes people say, wow, what is that?
Yeah.
And so,
is this on the shelves?
So we're in San Diego. We're focused on San Diego right now. We're in about, I think we're at 50 now restaurants that have it, and about 100 total that have said yes. And so we're just out delivering cases, and they're going through it really fast. So some of the bars are going through a bottle a night, 2 bottles a night.
Wow.
And people are just absolutely loving it. And so, we did, like I said, we didn't want to just be a tequila on the shelf. We didn't want to just go out and just stick it up there, get a distributor, and spend, millions of dollars on marketing across the United States. We said, our backyard's San Diego. Let's focus on that. Let's really go, 2 inches wide, a mile deep, saturate San Diego, own it. And from there, we can go out to the world. And, so I'm excited to see where it goes. And
it's really cool. It's also really brave to go into a market like the tequila market. I mean, any of the liquor beverages, but is crowded out there. And even in San Diego, like there's a lot going on in tequila. That's where all the distilleries are, the tasting rooms. Mm-hmm. So like, were you scared? Did this scare you? Yeah, because it's hard. What you're doing is hard.
Yeah. I've never been afraid of hard things.
No,
it's like,
no, I guess not.
And challenges are exciting. I think, yes, it is crowded. Now we're in the ultra premium category. So, most people only know of a few tequilas that are in that category, like Clase Azul, 1942, Casa Dragones, right? Those are the top tier, in most restaurants and bars. And so we're right there, priced under all those. So we're at $135 a bottle. We're like Clase Azul, Reposado is probably going to be anywhere from $150 to $200, depending on where you are. And 1942 is a little bit above too. It's $135 to $170. And so we said, well, if we can go after an area that's a little less crowded, because there's only 285-ish distilleries in Mexico, but they make about 3,000 brands. Yeah. So there's a lot of brands that are in that the Casamigos section, where there's just, you can name, 30, 50 different tequila brands. So we didn't want to go compete there. Kind of like, back to where when I went and started Fund Loans, we went after the super jumbo space. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people.
I forgot to mention that. Like, that's super niche-y.
Yeah, very niche-y, and it's because it was a hard business. We're looking at bank statements. We're not just doing a tax return in W-2 automated underwriting. We're actually looking individually at their whole credit picture and telling that story, like you said. And so my thought is just, if you're going to go do something hard, do a niche, do something that's very narrow, and not be just another lender in the box, right?
Or another tequila in the box.
Exactly. Right. So that's kind of why we chose that ultra premium space. It is less crowded. It is harder because you got to have a great product. Yeah. Otherwise, the bottle is one thing, because that'll get people to try it. But once they try it, if they don't fall in love with it, you're not going to succeed.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about, you are a serial entrepreneur, right? And you've been in the funding and lending industry. Mm-hmm. Now you're in tequila. Like, these are very heavily regulated areas of business. Yes. Right. So how do you, are you attracted to regulation?
Absolutely not. No, it's a necessary evil.
It is for these kinds of industries. So how do you, work the regulatory part of your lending business and tequila? Alcohol is also heavily regulated. Yeah. So how do you approach that? Do you hire people to do the regulatory issues? How does that work?
I'm a 30,000 foot person.
I can tell.
Yeah, and I don't love the nitty gritty. I mean, luckily my partner Preston, he really is good at the nitty gritty stuff, so we make a good team. But I think it's all about in life. When you start a company, you need a great team. You have to have a good team, and you have to know what you're good at, and you have to trust that the people that are good at other things, they can handle those things. So we have a great legal counsel that handles
all that stuff, the paperwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that, with mortgages and tequila, yes, very highly regulated.
Yeah.
For one, I can't be a degenerate. I've got to have a good, clean record. Otherwise, I don't get my licenses.
License. Yep.
Literally, like in my mortgage company, if someone has a felony, we can't even hire them. Like, there's just no way you can do that. Even if they, it was like a DUI or something, and it was 7 years ago, you just can't hire them. So there's a lot of things with tequila that it's like puzzle, like we talked about. It's a puzzle, right? So you're figuring out what you can do, what you can't do, and then if there's gray areas, you don't really try to get into that, but there are some ways that you can do stuff, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, with tequila, it's a lot of it's state laws, and then a lot of it is where you can distribute, or where you can how you import it and all that kind of stuff. But
it's like knowing, like you have to educate yourself.
You do,
you can't. You said something really cool, like your partner really likes the paperwork and all of that.
I don't know about paperwork, but details.
Details. Okay, I associate.
He does
details
a lot of the paperwork though too.
But one of the mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs and startups do when they go through the hiring process, whether it's in tequila or whatever the industry is, they hire exact replicas of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And you are setting yourself up for failure. And I just wanted to ask you, obviously you've learned some things on this journey of yours, and what are the mistakes that you have made as an entrepreneur?
Like, I love failures. Failures are one of my favorite things. There's a lot to say. All the way down to, when you have to import something, the timing, like who you're doing business with. Mexico is Mexico. I love the culture there, but it's different, right? It's a different culture than here. And the way you go about, working with the Mexican culture and the people is a little bit different than you would do, here. As far as timing, sometimes we set a launch date, and we're like, this is our launch date.
And you blow it.
And then, we made it luckily, but we had to jump through so many hoops that you would normally think like, gosh, if anyone else that wasn't okay with failures faced this stuff, they'd be like, oh, screw this. I'm not doing it. This is too hard.
Yeah.
And it is hard. You have to be willing to do stuff that's hard.
And you also have to be willing to accept that failure is a part of the process, right? Yeah. It is not like the fear of failure to me is more dangerous than actually the act of failing, right? Because for entrepreneurs, not like in general in life, but failure, you are going to fail at something as an entrepreneur and as a human, right? And so you shouldn't let that be a hindrance to just starting and executing. And,
absolutely.
Otherwise you're left with a basket full of regrets.
Yes,
true. What I mean?
Yeah.
As far as advice for entrepreneurs, tequila is one of the most popular topics with our listeners, right? Because why not?
They like the way it makes them feel. Right?
Yeah. And also it's just aspirational, right? Yeah. Your story is very aspirational. So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs and startups and maybe people who are just staggered by the fear of failure, right? Yeah. What is your advice?
I think you can't have quit as a word in your vocabulary or give up. It's just, you have to always know that. Here, I'll tell a quick story that really resonated with me. And someone told me one time, they said, you don't fear, hey, I got to go pick up some eggs and some coffee beans at the grocery store. You just go, you get in your car, you drive to the grocery store, you buy your eggs but if all of a sudden there was a stop sign at, detour, and you took the detour and you wouldn't just turn around and go home, right?
No, you follow through, commit.
You're going to get these eggs and you're going to get your, and then let's say you go around the corner and then there's a car accident and it's just crazy. It's just, there's someone that, is wounded on the road. There's ambulances. You don't just turn around and say, forget it. I can't get these eggs.
Yeah.
And so you just figure out another way and you just go through these, different detours. But if you have the mindset, I think some people they think something's too hard, too big, so that they put it in a whole different category. When you know that you like, when we set out to do this, we didn't think like, this is going to be impossible. This is going to be so hard. We thought,
cannot do that.
You can't.
Yeah.
So you have to just have the mindset like, we're going to do this.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. There's going to be problems along the way, and we're going to get it done. We're going to figure it out. It might take longer than we thought. It costs more. Just like when you go build a house, it's going to cost twice as much and take twice as long, right?
Yep. So, okay. So that's one piece of advice, and that's really like commit to your vision.
Yeah.
Right. And don't let fear, slow you down.
Right.
Right. And you're an artist and a tequila maker and all of these things. Like, what other advice do you have for people who are paralyzed maybe by the fear of failure?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite things is meditations, Marcus Aurelius. It's a stoicism. And I love the term amor fati. It's AMORFATI. It means love your fate. So it's almost like you looking at everything in life as a good thing, right? Because you don't know the outcome. There's a story about a Chinese farmer. Have you heard this story?
I don't know if I've heard this one, but
and I might mess it up, but it's one of my favorite stories about amor fati, right? So amor fati, like I said, it's love your fate, and I'll try to be quick about it. He starts off. He has one horse in his stable, and the horse escapes and runs off, right? And then the villagers come around and say, "Oh, bad misfortune, you lost your horse." And then the farmer said, "Maybe." And then the next day, the horse comes back with two other horses, and they run into the stable. And now that night, the villagers come back around and they say, "Oh, you have great fortune. You now have 3 horses." He said, "Maybe." And then the next day, his son goes out and tries to tame one of the horses, and the horse bucks him off, and he falls down, breaks his leg. And then the villagers all come around that night and say, "You have great misfortune. Your son just broke his leg. And how sad." And he just said, "Maybe." And then a couple days later, the conscription officer of the town comes in and says, "We're rounding up young men to go off to war. We see that your son has a broken leg and he can't go off to war." So then all the villagers come around. So it's like you never know what good or bad will come out of a situation. You can be stuck in traffic, something everyone goes through. And you could either take the mindset of like, "Oh my God, this sucks. It's the worst day of my life." You can be pissed about it, or you can be like, "You know what? I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to put on the Get Busy podcast and listen and learn some stuff." Right. And so I think to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to start training your brain to start. And you can. Some people say, "I'm just not built that way. I'm not a person that thinks positively. I'm a negative person, blah, blah, blah." You can start training your brain to start thinking positively and looking at situations and saying, "You know what? I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I'm just going to enjoy the ride." And
go with the flow. Yeah. So on those days, like I want to talk about that for a minute, because that's really good advice, right? Like training your mind, because on a motorcycle, we have a saying, right? You go where you look, right? And if there is a pothole in front of you and you stare at it, you're going to hit the pothole, eat pavement, all of that. And it's the same in business, right? If you focus on the negative and the potential for failure, that's where you're headed, right? You go where you look.
Yeah.
So on your days where it's like, this sucks, this is not what I signed up for, how do you get your mind and headspace in the right place?
It comes back to having vision, right? You have to know where you're going. You have to know, you can never say, like I said, give up, or you have to look at where you're going, like you said, and really know that you can do that.
Yeah.
And you have to tell yourself that. You have to, and I'm a big believer in speaking words out loud, right? Writing things down. And there's a magic to that. And I don't know if it's magic in the sense of magic, right? Like sorcery or whatever, but I think there's a magic to when you do that, when you write something down, when you say something out loud. When we started We Drink Tequila, one of the things that I said out loud was, are we really going to do this? This is a lot of work, right? I'm still running this other company. I have another company. And I just said out loud, I said, we were going down to Punta Mita, one of my favorite places in Mexico. And I said out loud, when we get there, if we're meant to do this business, I want to meet somebody that will help let's start this business. Some kind of connection, something great. And I said it out loud. I don't know if I wrote it down, but I did. I said it out loud to my wife, Marissa, and my kids. And when we got down there, we rented a boat, and just like last minute rented a boat. The guy asked us, what do you want to drink? I said, champagne for the girls, tequila for me. And so we get on the boat, and the owner of the boat, who wasn't really even supposed to be there, he was usually has a captain, but he just happened to be there with his kids, asked me when we're sitting on the boat, he said, he asked me, what kind of tequila do you want? He's like, I can get you Casamigos and get you blah, blah, blah. And I said, nothing big brand. Do you have anything that's small brand? He's like, I got you. So we got to the boat. He started asking me, like, why do you not want this? Everyone loves Casamigos. Why do you want something different? I said, well,
Which one is that? Casamigos? Is that's
a George Clooney?
George Clooney.
Yes.
Okay.
And Randy Gerber, he's the partner. But when I was sitting there on the boat and he came up to me, he said, why? I said, well, I want to start a tequila club where I bring in small batch stuff that's not in the United States, where we can introduce tequila into the United States, into San Diego. And he said, interesting. He's like, my brother-in-law owns the oldest distillery in Guadalajara.
No way.
And I just looked up in the sky. I was like, thank you, God. Thank you.
You manifested it.
Yeah. That's the way I kind of live my life. And whether it's, music or tequila or finance or whatever, I think you have to have that positivity. You have to say it out loud. You have to write it down. A lot of people believe in the writing things down.
I believe in it deeply.
Yeah. So like your goals,
and
right?
You're training
visually.
your brain and Yeah.
So I think, when that hit us, I called my partner, Preston. I said, hey man, I think we have to do this for sure.
I've been given a sign.
He was drinking tequila and he was like, that's awesome. And so we just went down the path and
wow.
Yeah.
What do you have to say? All right. I'm just going to ask this. All right. It's unrehearsed and all of that, but to entrepreneurs and people who are out there who aspire, right, to have the same journey that you've had, but in their, in their mind, it's yachts, beaches, it's glamour, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of these trappings that we see, with the Richard Bransons and all of these extreme entrepreneurs. Like, how do you, you want to inspire them, right? But the reality is what? Hard
work, grinding, eating shit, just not, and there's an element of fake it till you make it, right? So some people will go rent a Ferrari or they'll go rent a yacht and they'll take photos and they try to put this persona, that they are already there. And, I think there's an element to that, and it's not however, you have to be willing to just get into the ditch, the trenches and just eat shit, just grind, just, be muddy, be dirty, be in situations that you're not comfortable in and be able to still, sleepless nights. I mean, most of my companies that I've started, I've worked, 20-hour days, really sleeping hardly at all.
It's relentless.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody. I think when I say, yes, anyone can be an entrepreneur. Yes, anyone can do anything, right? I believe that. But I do think that you have to be willing to just do all this crap. And then you get, that's the reward, right? It's exciting to think someday, I'll be on a yacht, or someday I'll be able to fly private or whatever, right? Or whatever your thing is that you want to do. That's that motivator. But I think you have to love the journey more than that, because if you don't, then that will never come.
Yeah. But also when you're chasing money, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your bag, your gig, whatever, go for it. But there's something about knowing as an entrepreneur that you're being true to what you stand for.
Yes.
And doing the right thing. Right. And if you do that, if you chase that dream and that passion like you have in your entire career, the rewards are so much greater than a yacht. Right. It's just, I think it's in business and in life, but the hollow pursuit, that we see a lot in Silicon Valley and, on, reality TV is not fulfilling as a human being, right? Unless you were empty to begin. Hey man, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have things that in my life that I want, like goals as far as monetarily or, things like that. And those keep me working hard too. But I also really enjoy just the process.
Right.
Of
And
it.
you're free, right? You're your own boss.
Yeah.
You are in charge of your own destiny. And if you want to chase money, you can, like, it is a noble pursuit, but it is not, automatically ensure that you are in Ibiza on a yacht.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, right. And if you're there, you're probably not working to get,
Right. Somebody else is doing
someone
the grind,
else is grinding.
Right? Yeah.
And so many people look at you and they go, oh, you're just lucky, or you just, you get the magic touch and all these things. And they don't see the hard work that goes into doing this. And nor are they maybe willing to. And I think that's what I would tell, I have a son, he's 19, Nate. He's awesome. He's interning right now down in Guadalajara for a competitor. Well, they're not really a competitor, but they're one of the biggest tequila companies in the world. And, it's like he wants to work for Babemos at some point. And I'm like, well, you got to go. And he even wants to add value. So he's like, I don't want to just come in because I'm your son, but he wants to add value. And so he's down there.
And learn, there's an artistry to it. There's legacy to the art form of making tequila.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's really cool. It's like a family business sort of scenario.
Yeah. And I know my partner's son probably wants to do the same. And, but it's exciting, but you do have to put in that hard work and be, going down to Guadalajara, it's not getting paid, doesn't have, he's living in a little room and, and just every day going to work for free and learning and putting in that effort. And,
Well, it's really cool to get to talk to you, right? And just like learning all of the chapters of your life and the lessons, and you have been so generous.
Thank you.
With your time and your advice.
It.
Yeah, you were just lovely.
Thank you so much.
You for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.